Okay. Hi, Hef.
Hello there, darling.
Ready for you.
Hello.
Yay! Welcome. I don't know which chair, but I'll
That's perfect.
sit on both of them.
Nice to see you again, Mr. Hefner.
How does it feel? 35 years. Does it
Where
feel...
did they go?
Right? Do you remember the first one?
Sure, of course.
Anybody in particular in the lineup?
Well, the intention was to do it for just 1 year. It was the 25th anniversary of the magazine. And we had done it once before in Chicago for the 5th anniversary in 1959. So when the 25th rolled around and I was living out here, the notion of doing a jazz festival at the Bowl was too sweet. So we did it with the notion of doing a single annual, or a single event, and it was so embraced by the community that here we are, 35 years later.
How do you think George is doing? George Lopez, how do you think he's doing?
I think it was Cos. I'm not absolutely sure about that, but I think...
oh, well, Bill Cosby has been, what was he? He's the host for 30 years.
What's the question?
Well, Bill Cosby was the host for over 30 years, and now George Lopez has stepped into his shoes. How do you think he's doing so far?
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Did you have a part in appointing Mr. Lopez to take over?
No. No, I'm very, very pleased at the choice and very pleased at the response.
George acknowledged that Cos reached out to him. George has acknowledged that Cosby reached out to him, which was, of course, a huge honor.
Well, it's wonderful not only in terms of the humorous connection, but it's also wonderful in terms of the Latin connection, because jazz began with a black phenomenon. Now it's expanded into Spanish and other. It's perfect.
It's really international language now, more so than ever.
It is as America is. It is the American true art form,
right?
And it's a perfect fit.
I wanted to ask you about the first year. There were, you remember there were naysayers at the beginning here at the Bowl that said jazz. Do you remember some of those naysayers and what they were saying?
Well, I discovered after we made the commitment that nobody had been very successful in the Bowl with jazz. But the combination of George Wein and Playboy was unbeatable. The community, as they say, the community embraced it, and here we are 35 years later.
We've got the Brubeck brothers playing tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about Dave Brubeck's history here with the festival.
Well, Brubeck and I go back, almost from the very beginning. I think we did a piece on Dave in one of the early issues of the magazine. He was, I think, in the original Jazz Festival in Chicago in '59, and also was on Playboy's Penthouse, the television show that we were doing in that same time frame in '59 and '60.
Yeah, well, that was the classic year.
Yes, it was, and that very first festival was unbeatable too, because so many giants of jazz were there for that weekend at the Chicago Festival that were not alive much later. It was really an unbeatable time frame. In other words, in addition to Brubeck at the single festival, in addition to Brubeck, There was Louis Armstrong, there was Ella Fitzgerald, there was Sarah Vaughan, there was Duke Ellington and his orchestra, there was Basie and his orchestra, Stan Kenton and his orchestra, Miles Davis.
All the greats.
Yeah.
But over the course of it must be especially satisfying that over the course of these 35 years, if you look at the artists who've been on the stage here at the Bowl, Playboy has really almost documented how jazz has grown, expanded. It must be a source of great satisfaction.
Well, when we came in today, the first thing I did was look up right by the stage, and the seats at the very back of the thing were filled, and I thought, 35 years later, and they're still there and they're still supporting us. It's a wonderful phenomenon.
Sold out.
What is your favorite part of this day?
I don't think there is a single part, except to say that it had turned into, and was almost from the beginning, a community event, something that was really embraced by, considered, kind of an elite
Hef?
music, and embraced by everyone, and continues till this time, and it's very emotional.
And we have a surprise, Hef.
He was going to say that. He wanted to say when I showed up, it was his favorite time. But really, all of our favorite time was when he just showed up, and everybody got to acknowledge that he was here. I mean, without Hugh Hefner, I think all the men in here, our childhoods would be a lot bleaker. But also, what's been happening here for the last 35 years is not duplicated anywhere in the world. Bill Cosby is such a instrumental part of all of this, and with he and Hefner and the magazine and the support of everybody. But for Bill to ask me to take over the reins of something that is so successful and clearly brings so much joy to everybody is a tremendous honor. And we have a first Mexican-American Playmate of the Year. So what? When everything goes right, it goes right.
So what advice did Cosby give you?
Well, Mr. Cosby gave me a lot of advice. He told me that I would smell a few things in the air as the evening wore on.
Oh, yeah.
But also he told me that hey, here's the Playmate of the Year.
All right. What's your name?
Raquel Pomplin.
Nice to meet you, Raquel.
Nice to meet you.
I have a question for Mr. Hefner. The Playboy interviews are now available on Kindle and other e-readers. Have you seen an increase in the Playboy brand because of this new media and new technology, especially the magazine and the Jazz Festival?
Well, I think that's a mixed blessing. The fact that the interview and the magazine are available in all the various forms, etc., is very nice, but also competes with itself.
I have a question for both.
But I think it's better to put your magazine between your mattresses than your Kindle. Some things should never change.
Who has the bigger record vinyl collection out of both of you?
Mr. Hefner, I would assume, has had the bigger collection of everything. If you're going to compare anybody to anybody, he is hands down the winner in most columns. I would
George,
assume.
how does it feel to be out there for your first day?
Well, this crowd is tremendous. A lot of people got here early. The traffic is on our side, and it's a great day. I mean, it really is a beautiful day. The musicians are so happy. They spin that stage whether you're done or not, and we keep moving on time. And as the evening grows, I see what's in those boxes. I know the excitement will grow as well.
You have some butterflies at first? That when you first hit the stage?
No, I love this place. I've performed here before, and this place, I'm from LA, so this is really home. And there are few meccas in the world that mean as much to a performer or as a comedian than the Hollywood Bowl.
Do you remember the first time you were here?
The first time I was here, we introduced or put Carlos Santana into the Hall of Fame, Hollywood Bowl Hall of
Wow.
Fame.
yeah.
Mr. Lopez, now that you are the MC of this great event, will you incorporate what you do today into your comedic act?
After today, my life will never be the same. So yes, I mean, look who's standing to my right. So of all the things, other things that Bill Cosby told me, he said, don't let the musicians eat all your food and drink all the drink.
I have a question for Mr. Hefner. Could you please elaborate on the Latin connection and jazz? The connection between Latin and jazz, Latin music and jazz?
I'm not hearing something.
The connection between Latin music and jazz.
Yes.
The connection between Latin forms and jazz.
Yes,
Of course. Well, one of the things that I think that is special about jazz is that it is a unification of several kinds of music. That's what makes it so truly American and so delicious.
Well, that's what made this place successful. Is now you have Hugh Hefner up there. We've had some Latino performers, and you know, it's a universal festival. It is Playboy is a universal, global brand, and this festival is the same.
And George, who are you looking forward to introducing on stage this weekend?
Well, I mean, everyone is tremendous here, but clearly, you know, to celebrate Quincy Jones's 80th birthday.
Yes.
As well, let us not forget that. But you know, Mr. Herbie Hancock,
Yes.
and George Duke and Jeffrey Osborne, Sheila E.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about Latin connection, and you know, Lee Rittenhour is coming up. I mean, everybody is the best at what they do at the same place in the same weekend. So it's great.
So is this the first of 30 years for you, or?
Well, you know, I'll get my report card on Monday. So I'm trying. You know, it's hard to sit there and watch people drink and have a great time. I even thought I saw an electronic marijuana cigarette. But I'm not saying allegedly, but it is hard to sit there and watch everybody have a great time without not wanting to be part of it myself. So.
Okay, we've got to wrap up in a minute, so one more question.
Last question.
Can you remember your first Playboy magazine?
Yes, my first Playboy magazine I got, you know, these times have changed now. I mean, don't judge me by being 12, okay? I was 12 years old, and I took a Greyhound trip from Sacramento to San Fernando, California, and it was the best trip I've ever had. And my first interracial love was Lonnie Chin, who was a playmate, and she hung in my closet for many years.
Okay, Paula, did you have a question?
Playboy Jazz Festival?
This is my first one.
No, you've been at the Playboy
I could never get a ticket before, so I had to.
I have one last question for Mr. Hefner. Will there be future Playboy Jazz at Sea festivals like there were a couple of years ago? Do you plan future Playboy Jazz at Sea on the yacht like we used to?
The jazz cruise.
Would there be another jazz cruise in the future?
You mean traveling? I mean outside? I mean,
A future jazz cruise.
Oh, the cruise.
Yes, sir.
It's possible.
Okay, great. I'll see you there.
All right, thank you, everybody.
We'll see you all on the high seas or out there.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Without you, nobody knows we were doing this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hefner.
Thank you. What are you doing? Thank you. Everything. Thank you.
Where's Tim?
God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Hefner. Wonderful to see you again.